Hello and welcome back to OmniFoot TV. This is your host Summer speaking. Tonight's video, because it's pretty late and I'm really tired, man, is about the Guatemala-Canada game. The game just ended. Right now, Guatemala are ranked 117th on FIFA's world ranking tier. Canada are ranked 44th or 45th. Either way, doesn't really make a difference. The gap between them is astronomical. Canada just played in the last World Cup. And Guatemala are literally basically this unknown footballing nation. They're not even a footballing nation. Canada are more of a footballing nation than they are. They're playing in the Gold Cup right now. They're playing against much easier opposition than they did in the World Cup. I don't know what's up with this Canadian national team, but they seem to really just struggle against anyone nowadays. There's a recurring theme here. Whenever the game passes the 60-minute mark, they start to wake up again. They start to realize that they've been struggling with their positioning, that they've been struggling with maintaining their shape, that they've been struggling with moving the ball forward or backward in order to switch play however they would. They've made horrible and horribly timed passes. They've either overplayed certain passes or underplayed them. Their decision-making had been wonky the entire game until after the hour mark. And even then, they weren't clinical. Schaffelberg had this one chance near the right-hand side of the post, and he should have finished it. He should have ended the game right there. His first touch failed him. It was far too heavy. He took too much time to take the shot. Canada gave away too many fouls, far too many fouls. It's a good thing that Guatemala weren't necessarily set-piece specialists, because if they were, this game would have ended 2-0 by now. The Guatemalans did the one thing the Canadians should have done. And it still applies to what the Guadeloupeans did in the last game. They managed to be productive on the ball. They were effective. It wasn't about how much time they had on the ball, or off of it for that matter. It was about what they did when they had it. They were creating space. They were moving forward in a cohesive manner whenever they had to mount a counter-attack, because the Canadians were not on the front foot for most of the game. But even then, against the run of play, they suffered. They would either overly commit physically and commit these horrible fouls that they shouldn't be committing at this level. And they didn't take advantage of any of their set pieces either. There was a string of corners in between both sides, on both sides of the pitch. Neither side could really take advantage of that, but there were crosses from the Canadians as well into the box that weren't taken properly. Their man marking was just, the Guatemalans didn't really man mark all that well, but the Canadians weren't really moving as well as they should have. They weren't making the kind of runs into the box that they could have. And even the crosses that were made that were proper enough, they weren't finished off. The Canadian national team is really struggling. They seem frustrated, and you could tell after certain fouls that they had had enough of the game, that they just didn't know how to come back from it. And that was maybe 70 minutes in. There was a string of fouls. I believe the commentator said that there were 5 Canadian players who were given yellow cards. 5 players. You're playing a team that's ranked 117th, and you're giving away cheap free kicks. Why? I wonder what John Herdman is trying to instill in these players, because they should be doing a lot better than they are. I have no idea what they're going to do against Cuba, but Cuba is the weakest team. Guadeloupe basically beat them 4-0 before this game kicked off, and Canada could have easily put themselves in, they would have easily taken advantage of that to qualify from the group. Either way, they have a chance of qualifying. I'm not necessarily sure that if they had won, would they have been able to ensure qualification outright, but it would still have kept them a step ahead. You don't go to the US and play Guatemala, and even though the atmosphere was more so Guatemalan than it was Canadian, because they really packed that stadium. Fair play to their fans. Seriously. And their players. They were just well organized. A very well organized side, playing to its strengths, trying to stretch its limitations, without taking too much of a risk. I have to give it to them. But the Canadians, though, they weren't dragging players out of position. They weren't trying to stretch their opposition's defenses to use the spaces between the lines as properly as they should have. And even then, they're finishing. My God, they're finishing. I'm not necessarily sure if John Herdman is actually trying to win the tournament or if he's just, watching his players casually strut about on the pitch. Something is wrong with this national team. Something is wrong with this side. And they need to sort it out before the next game. I've said this in the last video and I've said it in the one before. Canada have had a recurring theme of waking up to the fact that they're playing a game 60 minutes in. And the thing is, when they faced the US in the Nations League final, they had already been made to pay for that early on in the game. They were made to pay for it in the last game against Guadeloupe. And they could have easily lost. They were made to pay for it this time, but not to the extent at which they were made to pay for it in the last two games. Why? Because they faced a lesser opponent. Either way, Guadeloupe were still a lesser opponent. If they face heavy opposition in this tournament at any stage, that's if they make it out of the group stage, by the way, they can't play like this. They need to be faster. They need to be more aware, more awake. Both spatially, on the ball, off the ball, and they need to stop just stopping play. At one point, one of the Canadian center backs had the ball. He just stopped and looked around him, and he had the player to his right and a player right in front of him, and a triangle of Guatemalan players ahead. At certain points in time, it was as if the person who had the ball, whoever he was for the Canadian national team, was just standing there waiting for someone to create space to give him more options. It's very easy to run into space, to pull a player out of position alongside you so that someone else can make a run in wherever the heck you are, be it on your side of the pitch or on the opposition's side. It's very simple. It's efficiency. It is peak efficiency in football. It's very basic. They're not running. And it's not that they're not running when they should be running. And, I'm just going to stop here because I am a little frustrated, but I'd like to know what you guys think about this. If any of you have watched the game, please let me know what you think about this in the description below, in the comment section below, excuse me. If you agree or disagree with anything I've said, with any of the comments I've made, let me know. Please like the video if you've enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Hit that bell notifications button because we post content on a daily basis. And I will see you next time the whistle blows. And hopefully by then, Canada will have won a game and got themselves out of the group stage. Cheers, everyone. Thank you for watching. I am tired. I'm going to go to bed. See you tomorrow.